guys, and welcome to Dance Talk. Today we are talking about Eisteddfods, and I'm super excited to introduce my fantastic guests. We've got Charles Bartley, Chris Duncan, and Darren Disney.
Hey.
And I'm so excited to have you guys on today.
Thanks
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
It's something that we've all been a part of for many, many years in different ways. And yeah, I think we're going to have, I guess, slightly different perspectives on as well. Obviously, it's a huge part of our industry. It's a huge part of kids growing up. I guess today's about kind of discussing how comps have changed over the last, 10, 20 years. And I guess kind of talking to parents and dance parents and students as well, to kind of give them a perspective on what we think they should be doing and how they should be approaching competitions as well, because I think that's a kind of a common thing that I've discussed with people from, like Chris, yourself, running DanceLife Unite for how long now?
Oh, since 2012, so...
Right, yeah, a long time. To studio owners, to adjudicators, they're kind of like seeing some amazing stuff out there, but also kind of, I guess, seeing differences in how students are approaching that whole world, I guess.
Well, it's definitely changed over the last, 20 or so years. These days, there's so many competitions, and there's so much to choose from for parents and for studio owners. So I guess it comes down to choosing competitions that they feel comfortable with, but approaching them in a way as a growth kind of journey for them, rather than only for the trophy and that type of thing. I always say to people that it's really important to look at a dance competition so that it's an experience on stage, because we can't emulate that or simulate that in the classroom. It's something that is a really amazing tool to get your stagecraft, to get that experience, to learn and to work together to establish and absolutely nail that. So I see it as a great learning tool for every dancer, from right from the time they're really little right up to adults. It's something that they can learn, and the feedback that they get from professionals is that critique is so important. And you guys have all done judging, across many different competitions, and I know you all give back as much of your heart and your skills and your experience as you possibly can. So that's so important for kids to get a different perspective to what they're getting from their teachers every week. And it might be that you're saying the same things as what their teachers are saying, but because it's coming from somebody different, it actually sometimes, I noticed when I was teaching that, if it came from the adjudicator, finally they went, oh, okay, it's not, they're not just saying the same, my teacher's not just saying the same thing to me over and over.
I mean, I got that from my teacher when I did Eisteddfods. They'd read their report and be like, see that?
I told you.
Told you.
Yes.
Do it. And you're like, I guess you're right.
Finally sinks in.
Yeah. And it's nice because it is that outside perspective, because sometimes in the studio, it just feels like you're being harped on. You're just like, dude, just point your feet. Point them harder. And you're like, I am. They're terrible. You know that. And then you get on stage and you point them, and then they're like, yeah, you really need to keep working on that. So it's nice to hear that from some outside perspective, and then when you get to the point where you can judge, you know what's helpful. Because sometimes technical stuff isn't always the thing to go to as well. And as you said, it's like it's a building experience. So what you might see the kid needs is a boost in confidence. And I think that's important for adjudicators and judges to know, is that you're trying to help those kids, right? It kind of feels like sometimes I got into a bad habit of being like, one good thing, one bad thing, one good thing, one bad thing. But, I think building them up using your skills of intuition as a performer or a teacher to be able to go like, all right, well, especially if you see the same kid consistently, that is a great thing to be like, all right, this seems to be a theme, let's address that. The only thing is sometimes you feel rushed, and I know that you're about to include the, what do you call it?
Oh, the audio critiques. yeah.
Audio critiques.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm only 30, guys. I'm not 180. I still don't know what I'm doing. But that's going to be helpful to try to get out more
Yeah,
rather than
it
me being
does,
like,
yeah.
make sure you point, and they're like, what did you say? Over the music, you go, make sure you point, and then it
Yeah.
comes out like the rabbit said, and you're
Yeah.
like, that's not what I said at all, you know.
We've
That's
always
so
had
true.
like a 50-50, some people love the audio critiques, but then some people love having that tangible,
Yeah.
takeaway, and they can read it and then they can come back and change it. And I know when BJ's done some, and Darren has done some judging recently for us, that, they've noticed these kids that have, they started with, perhaps their ballet in the morning, and then they've been critiqued on that, and then, certain things that they've seen in their lyrical or their contemporary, and then they've taken their critiques and they've come back in the afternoon stronger,
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
utilising what they've learned from their critiques and actually making that change. And that's what's so organically fantastic about competitions,
Yeah.
because they can grow within that framework. It's not just about getting on stage and whether you get a trophy or not. It's certainly not about that, in my opinion.
No.
It needs to be about the growth for that dancer from
Yeah.
a performance point of view,
Yeah.
because their technique's getting taken care of in the classroom,
100%,
and but their performance is a whole, the other side of dancing. You've got your technique, you've got all of that, happening in the studio, but the performance side of things needs to come from stage experience. It can't come from any other,
You
any
can't
other
really tell fully
aspect.
what their performance quality and skill is at until you see them on stage.
That's
They're
right.
going to do it in the studio, and it's our job as teachers to encourage that and to push them
Yeah.
to do it in the studio. But until you see what they actually do on stage, it's hard to actually manipulate
And
and
tweak.
work on their growth in that
Yeah.
area, which is a
I mean,
really
as,
good
as
aspect
you
of
said,
comps.
like, you can't replicate that stage experience, and I think it's like a do or die situation. I feel. I remember being in the studio and being like, I got this when I'm on stage.
Yeah.
And then when you step out there and you're like, there's a lot of eyes on me right now.
Yes.
That puts a lot of like,
Different when the nerves
it's
jump
a
in.
it's a visceral fear in there that makes you kind of jump to that next level. And it's only in that circumstance can you feel
Yeah.
that and then know that feeling
Yeah.
to then be like, hey, remember when you were on stage and you were terrified and you danced the best you've ever danced?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that, but in here,
Yeah.
But if you never are able to get that to that point with a kid, you can be in the studio being like, imagine,
Imagine this happened.
and
Yeah.
they're like, I only know like my school performances.
That's
Like,
right.
it's not exactly the same. So
I remember when I was a kid and I was performing, like doing solos and that type of thing. I got to a certain point in my routine and I'd be halfway through it and I would remember to breathe. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
and get through it. So, it's taking that anxiety out of it by doing comps. I think that's the important part. But there is also the other side of, just doing too many comps.
Yeah.
Which can take you to the other side of the realm and be about the trophy, which is I think that can be damaging to mental health for kids in a way, because it's not always going to go the way you want it to. So and I feel like that reward system is fantastic if it's approached in a positive way, but if it's approached in a way that can be negative, then it's only going to hurt the child's progress rather than help it. So
100%.
I think using a Eisteddfods as a vehicle to grow from here to there constantly. That's how I set up my kids.
Yep.
Like, it's not about the win; it's about your best
Yeah.
so far.
Compare what you did last time to this time.
Yes.
What areas were improved upon, and what other problems did we see, or what other things can we kind of improve on?
Yeah.
By watching what happened today.
And you were saying earlier, Darren, about the teamwork and how, it really helps your teams, pull together and be part of a community in your
It's
studio.
all about team spirit and respect to other dancers, especially at other dance schools. Because I've got this big saying that the dancers that you're sitting next to that have the different team jacket on will be your friends that you'll go to auditions to, that you'll do shows with, that you'll travel the world with. They'll be long life friends, and that's true.
And I think this is a kind of a good point to make. I think the difference between utilising comps in a positive way and maybe thinking about them in the wrong way often comes from the teacher or the studio. If you've got a teacher like yourself saying, okay, when we get there, make sure you network with the other kids, make sure you're always clapping them, you know, congratulate them, full respect. It's about entertaining the audience, it's not about the trophy, and you put less, you know, emphasis on that. They're going to take the right things from it. But they're, you know, on the flip side of it, if there's a teacher that's kind of like, how could you not win this time? Or, you know, don't clap them, you know, which unfortunately does exist.
Oh, right. I was about to say, do you think that old sort of traditional...
I've heard of teachers kind of like, if they don't win, the owner would literally leave, not speak to the dancers, and just go home and just be furious.
Yeah, that was a big thing when I was growing up and Daz was growing up, but I had hoped that it would change over the years. But
and of course, like, there is amazing teachers out there. There's a lot of them that are starting to see the right ways to think, but there's always going to be...
I think there's been a shift, because actually I still felt it in the late 90s and early 2000s when I was kind of going through the Eisteddfod scene. And I asked the younger kids when I was home in Dubbo recently, like, is it still like that? Like, do you talk to the other studios and stuff like that? And they were like, it's actually pretty chill.
Oh, that's so good.
And I was like really kind of relieved to hear that. And I don't know if that was a shift of culture and or just some sort of like maturity on the kids' parts, where they just have more opportunities outside of this one thing. You know, like my old school does like little video projects and performances that are not Eisteddfod based, and so I guess it kind of just takes a little bit of the heaviest like importance on the Eisteddfod, is to give them other opportunities where it's like other performance opportunities, rather than putting so much pressure on this one thing. Be like, if we don't do well here, it's over for you guys.
That's it.
And as a studio owner, I definitely, like, Aisha and I are very big on 50% comps, 50% other things, whether it's a performance at a festival or a video or something like that.
Promotion.
Because, you know, around that. Because exactly that. If their whole mindset is every time we leave the studio and get on stage, we're either getting a trophy or we're not getting a trophy. Even if you don't put emphasis on that, like you said, if you do too many solo comps or if you do too many comps, it starts to kind of sink in, that thing of, oh, I didn't get it again. Oh, I still didn't get there.
And it becomes about the mindset of the competition and the trophy, rather than about the growth. So
I like how you incorporate workshops and stuff into the whole arena of Eisteddfods and competitions, because then even if those people are it's just it is more community, more engagement with each other in regards to teachers and to other students.
It's a connection to the industry.
And it builds a fun atmosphere, which is probably one of the most important things
about comps.
Because in a kid's head, like, when they're stressed to go do something, you know, I remember being like, it was just a rating scale of Eisteddfods that I just loved to do. And some of them were the least pressure, like Gulgong Eisteddfod, where it was in a hall, you know, but I just felt like I could get up there, perform, get off, and everyone would be like, cool, let's go get a meat pie. You know, like, and there's no pressure beyond actually performing. And you'd be like, all right, cool. We loved your melody to Ricky Martin's songs. And you're like, thank you. Do you like my shaky arm?
And I think that's like where comps are improving these days. It's the overall kind of atmosphere and the excitement and the energy and the elements where they're working together. I think, I mean, I don't know if you guys agree, but I feel like those aspects are kind of improving. But I think there are some other areas that have changed that, I don't know, may not end up with the same result as, I guess, when we first started competing in them. Do you think there's areas that maybe could improve, or maybe that we've lost in the last 20 years that kind of should be still around as part of competitions?
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, there's so many different competitions, and I think there's so many different ways that people do run their competitions. So I think there is a move to more, educational style comps, you know. I mean, my whole philosophy when I started our competition on the Central Coast, which is Coast Quest, which is back in 2005, was to incorporate, an educational process. Like, so we had free workshops and things like that, incorporated as part of the program, because we wanted to bring to the coast, you know, dancers, you know, choreographers from Sydney, such as yourself. You know, I remember you came.
Yes, yes.
And that
awesome.
type of thing, you know, because at that time the Central Coast hadn't had much of that.
Yeah.
And then with DanceLife from 2012, we very much, because I have a long background as a dance teacher, and 28 years I was teaching and had my own studio and that sort of type of thing, I understand the process of training dancers, not just, you know, from a technical point of view, but into careers, and was very successful at that. But part of that was, you know, the whole training that came through the competitions, but also the workshops and exposing everyone to different choreographers and networking and all that type of thing. So that's what I built the whole ethos of DanceLife Unite on, as a educational program, to, you know, open people up to the likes of, you know, full professional dancers that had long and strong careers that really have the right stuff to tell dancers and educate them,
Yes.
rather than just critiquing and not being able to give them anything beyond that.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, also being able to sort of offer scholarships to the Broadway Dance Centre and things like that, you know, massive training opportunities overseas and that sort of thing. That's, again, comes back to my teaching kind of ethos and background, to try and sort of grow opportunity. So I know that there's other comps doing that type of thing now too, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But look how much
Excellent.
thought Chris has put into this.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You know what I mean? Like, she hasn't been like, it'd be cool to hire out a venue and just get people on the stage.
Yeah.
You're really thinking, like, what is the most beneficial for the kids that are going to walk through these doors?
Yeah.
And I hope that more people might see that in the competitions coming through these days. Be like, wow, they're putting in a lot of effort. Exactly. Because you should lead from a point where it's like, how am I going to benefit the community by putting this on?
Yeah.
Rather than being like, are we going to cover costs and am I going to make $60? Like,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's a huge part of it, obviously. I mean, you have to
100%,
look at the business side of it, because otherwise, you know, for the first couple of years of DanceLife Unite, we went backwards.
Yeah.
But we knew that at some point we would go forwards, and thankfully we did, until COVID hit. But you know, also having, you know, experience, you know, being an agent, I was also very aware of how little work there actually is in Australia once you go through the whole process of, you know, competitions and training. Obviously, so that's another reason why I wanted to try and sort of open up opportunity,
Yes.
and create, you know, like different avenues for people to go down. So, and, you know, I think that's an important thing, and other comps are taking that on now too, which is great.
They are.
You know,
yeah. As I mean, you've probably judged so many Eisteddfods and competitions over the time. Have you, like, around the country as well?
Yeah.
Is there like a difference that you see over time or between areas?
Exactly. You know,
Right.
like here in the big cities and that, you get your big comps, and they're more like the American style comps.
Right.
Whereas I go to some, and they've been like how when I was 6 years old, which is like 50 years ago. You know, like I was telling Chris in the car on the way down today that Dean Perry and I did a tap duo and we won, and we both got a glass lemon server jug and a server, like a cake server.
That's
and all these
so
sort
good.
of trophies. Yeah, things have changed a lot dramatically. You know, if they can get connected to the industry, like, but we didn't have that. We lived in Newcastle and we wanted to be dance stars.
and
So
you wanted that lemon juice.
I needed that lemon juice jug.
Cora. And also the little, like the tiny little medals you'd get.
Yeah,
That would be it. You wouldn't get these
Yeah,
massive
they're
trophies.
crazy
You'd get
now.
a tiny little medal, and
They're
you'd
bigger
put them
than
on
the
your
kids.
lapel,
Yeah.
and you'd have your cape, and you'd be jingling them, you know, and you'd look around going,
Yeah.
Oh Lord, I had a maroon
I guess
cape.
it's been a long process, you know, like to get it to where it is now.
What about those days do you think should still be that comes now? Like, I feel like there's, you know, a lot of people that have been...
It's so much bigger now, though, so
It has to change, I guess.
it
doesn't
has to change too.
Yeah.
Like back in those days, everyone knew everyone, you know, every single person. You know?
Yeah.
And we were in little church halls and that in our comps, whereas now we're in big venues, you know, like big arenas and everything, and it's so digitalised. Technology's played a huge part in the change, you know.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
no more
that's
tapes.
yeah. You're right. You're right because
No more rewinding the
I
tape.
actually watched. My
The big
parents
reel
got
to reel or the cassette.
Yeah, the cassette, yeah.
my parents got the videos from my younger days converted to DVD, and I watched them at home one day, and I was terrible. Like, so
You always
bad.
think you're better.
Same, like, fake leather pants, but just in different colours. Like a lime green and then a black and then a white.
Oh, yeah.
I can't get away with that.
Oh, we had lycra unitards.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
where
it
are
was
those
appropriate for the
costumes
time.
Do you feel pressure as a studio owner to do a certain amount from your clients, or do you?
No.
How many do you do a year roughly?
I think the max we've done is 7.
Yeah, that's good. That's a lot, I think.
Yeah, it is a lot. But I think I'm training them. Like, a lot of the kids that come to my studio aren't like Maddie Ziegler. They're like, I'm pushing them. You know,
Yeah.
come on, you can do this. Come on, we can do this.
Yeah.
So
But that gives any level that same experience that we've been talking about. They're still growing from that exposure to being on stage and dealing with the pressure.
yeah.
And it's just as beneficial for.
I think that's why I did so many that year. It's not every year that I do that many. I pick and choose, and I think I always like to know the judge, because I want to make sure that there's an industry professional. I want the kids to get really connected and educated on.
And you want that feedback that's gonna, maybe they haven't heard before, or it's gonna reinforce, like we said before, something that you push in class.
Yeah, that expertise is vital. You know, to have that person sitting there who has a worldly view of many styles. They might not
that's
have
a
to
hard
be an
thing.
expert in every style, but they understand the complexity behind most of them, you know. And I think it's appropriate if someone doesn't know a ballet adjudicator, doesn't know a hip hop section, change them out for that section or that
Totally.
or that part
I
of
agree.
it. Tap or whatever.
I won't do classical.
Yeah.
Like I say, put me out for that session or organise a timetable. So
Yeah.
And there's so few people that actually do have extensive knowledge in every single style.
Yeah.
genre.
Yeah.
You know, and as a Eisteddfod organizer or a competition director, I can imagine it would be super difficult.
It does get difficult sometimes, you know, and like, I mean, there's some exceptional people that are fantastic with contemporary and lyrical, but they haven't got any idea, and they're quite open about that, about tap or, you know, that sort of thing, so, or hip hop, you know, and so we're restricted in some ways when we can, you know, employ those types of people, even though we'd love to. But that's why we, you know, at our nationals we try and have an eclectic mix, you know, and where we can, we try and have a couple of judges. But it's just, it is, and you know, everyone is so amazing that you want to give them a fair run. But if they don't feel comfortable either, they're not going to, you know, like be able to do their job.
And then I guess there's probably
We'll
nothing
just wait
worse.
for the phones to start ringing. Sorry.
thank God.
Or we may keep this. I hadn't even thought about addressing adjudicators today, but I think it is a really important part of our audience that I'm hoping is watching, because it is an important thing. And I think if you've got that right adjudicator that does have extensive knowledge, that does have something important to give the kids, they also have to want to be there and want to give that as well. There's so many people that are kind of like, oh, it's a job between my other jobs, and if you're doing that, same as teaching, you're not being fair to those kids that have worked so hard. And it, you know, you do have to think out of the box. What do I have to, like you said before, Charlie, what can I give them that's going to actually improve this person? Not just like the obvious thing that they're not doing well. What can I give them that's going to actually help them improve past today?
And I mean, thinking back now, I mean, I haven't judged or adjudicated in a long time, and I guess a lot of my philosophies have adjusted and grown since I've done that. I would prefer myself to give them one really good solid point rather than trying to knock out like 18 different things. You know, if I'm like, I can just see this is going to help them just by just getting that little thought into their mind, I'd rather spend a little bit of time just speaking and watching rather than trying to get it, like trying to literally critique as you, because your brain is split between trying to like
word it correctly
because you want to articulate it so that they understand. And that requires a little bit of time. And you've only got
Recognise what they need.
Yes.
Forward.
Yeah.
And Chris, I think what you said before is very true. Like when it comes to the verbal critiques to written ones, there is a debate there. But me personally, I think that format does kind of help what you're talking about, where you can actually just pretend that, what I like to do is pretend I'm actually just cleaning that person's routine and I'm sitting with them. And in that way, it kind of makes you feel more open to just explaining it how you would in such a way that's going to connect with them as they're doing steps. And sometimes it can kind of connect to them in a more real way, I guess.
Well, that's the thing, because you can give inflection as well.
Exactly.
In the way that you could say, you really need to feel that. And the weight of the way you say that, they'll go, okay.
And when you say it, so they can hear it.
And
with the
they do the
music.
same thing again.
Yes.
You go, again, like before on those jetés or whatever it is. They can hear kind of.
Because
say
it is nice to have a written thing, and I used to read them afterwards, and I used to collect them actually at the end of the day and read through and be like, oh, okay, cool. It was nice to actually have those words to read, but I think there is some definite advancements and help that can be given to the kids in this kind of new format which has been developed. I think it's a nice way to go.
And either way, like, there's nothing better as an adjudicator than whether they've read it or watched and listened to it, when they do come back, like you said before, and they've applied something you've actually given them. Wow, like that's exciting, because they're not actually just doing this for a trophy. They're trying to actually improve. They're trying to take on what you as an adjudicator is giving them, and they're applying it instantly. 1 hour later.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole purpose of the exercise.
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day, I mean, that's the educational side of it. So.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million life philosophies that you could probably get out of a competition experience. The word competition in itself is the one,
Totally.
like the fact that you will go through whatever you decide to do with some level of competition with other people, whether you're going for a job, as a dancer or, out in the muggle world, that there's going to be that level of competition, how you deal with that. And it's nice to have a supportive environment as in the competition experience, because they're guided through that. That if someone's struggling with confidence, with other jealousy, with bullying, with any of that, they have support around them by everyone, hopefully, adjudicators, teachers, parents, hopefully students as well, or their friends, that can mold that experience into a positive.
Yes.
And those are skills that you'll actually take beyond the stage.
Yes.
And will be applied to a whole different thing. So I think like little things like that too, that maybe we don't think of an Eisteddfod as that.
Yeah.
They come into play.
They do, yeah.
Absolutely.
And dealing with pressure or dealing with making a mistake, for instance, is something I think is so important about doing competition. Anyone that's done competitions for long enough has gone on stage and forgotten what they're doing. And then I always make a point to explain what that is for. Like, that's why you're here today, so that you can realize that next time this happens, you need to feel that feeling you just felt, stand your ground, give your brain a second, and actually notice that it's going to come back to you if you give it long enough.
BJ, you and I know very well as performers that
I know what you're going to say.
that I've messed up on stage. I mean, at competitions, and then you're like, holy dooly, like, your brain just goes into like hyper, like you're going through space and time trying to figure out what the next step is, and where the music is, and whether you're being judged or not. And then, once you build those experiences on X Factor one time, my very first step, I'm at the pyramid of a triangle. I walk out. First step is a head down. The glasses come off. I bat them away. They fly away, and I'm like, okay, and it's square division choreo, so it's like, ka, 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 ka. And I had to be like, all right, I guess it's a freestyle from now on, and then lost it completely.
And I
live
was
on television,
just in case you don't remember, I was directly behind you. So I was having the challenge of, don't copy Charlie, like, because he's doing some crazy freestyle up there. But that skill, like,
that's a skill that has been, it's not a foreign experience. I could have frozen, but I knew those times when I'd been on stage from a self-choreographed solo, and I'm like, I don't know this very well, and then you get out there, and you just forget it, and you're like, you have to keep going.
That was my go-to in my last few years of Eisteddfods, but
it's all that's the biggest, for me, the biggest point of competitions is for moments like that, when things go wrong, or when
it teaches you to think on your feet. Yeah, absolutely.
And the audience don't know what it's meant to be, and neither does the judge.
No, that's
but
right.
it's a hard skill to develop.
It's hard
keep
when,
it calm. Yeah.
It's hard when it happens in a troop. It's okay.
I just happened to luckily be at the head of that triangle in X Factor.
So it didn't matter.
People were like, I love that freestyle.
Yeah.
So I was like, thanks so much.
And it was
Appreciate
one of
that.
the only times on X Factor where the artist wasn't even on stage yet.
Yes,
I don't know why.
yeah.
It was just a moment with just dancers.
Just us.
Just us.
Great time to go down, Charles.
You nailed the freestyle though.
Thank you, I appreciate that. But those are the sorts of things where, like, I used to do like impros. Do they still do impros? And
yeah.
stuff?
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
that's
great.
so good.
I think that's so important.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
to be standing a bit backstage and just being like, all right, because that is another real world skill. It's a freestyle.
Freestyle.
It's a
It is,
freestyle,
it's
you know,
freestyle.
and you have to almost structure it in the way of a performance, which teaches you about how to structure a performance.
Totally.
So if you want to develop choreography and stuff like that, you're thinking beyond putting together 4/8s on the same spot. You're thinking, I need to travel over there.
Yeah.
I need to engage with the audience as I come across the front.
Yep.
You know, and those sorts of things, particularly in solos and whatever, that when you get in a group, like you feel that confidence in yourself, and then you step into a group setting, it feels like you've got 300, like the Spartans behind you, you
Yeah.
know, or in front of you, depending on where you are in the routine.
Yes.
And
Impro's so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah.
I wish I never did it as a kid, and I don't know why. I just.
no, you
I don't
turned
think
out
I
all
ever-
right. Well,
Yeah, but you know what? I still get nervous. But I'm sure we all know, like, every second audition, if not more, you
Yeah.
have to improv at
Yeah.
some
You have to
point.
do some kind of freestyle in most auditions. So
Yes.
I used to teach it constantly, but I did have one student that kind of took it a little bit too far. Like I used to say, you know, like if you forget it, just improv, etc. But every time you get on stage, he'd forget his routine.
just improv every
Just
time.
improv the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, we'd get critiques back saying, you know, maybe you want to vary your choreography a little bit. And like his mother would look at me, and I'm going, he didn't remember a
choreo.
stitch of it. Like he just improv the whole thing,
you
and he
th-
was really good at spins. So he used to do spin
Just
after
turn the
spin
whole
after
time.
spin, and he knows, if he's watching this, he knows exactly who he is. I love you.
because you have a go-to. I had a friend who just tuck jumped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
There you
she'd
go.
just run to the corner, tuck jump down, and then just like it would cut, and that'd be the end. She'd be mid tuck jump, and then she'd have to finish, you know.
But I think, look, as much as, like you're saying, it is important to experience that thing of structuring your impros, I think I also encourage when I'm adjudicating, because I can see, okay, you've taken combos from class, you've taken, like the whole point for me is that you kind of don't know what you're going to do until you go
100%.
out there, and
Yeah.
that's actually the only way to develop that skill of
Yeah.
improv for auditions. And
Yeah, I used to
I think
cheat like that.
I think even in Fame, I remember a moment where you and I were either edge of the stage and we improv every night. I think 4 counts of 8 or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's so used.
Oh yes,
remember
yeah,
that?
100%. Yeah.
You use that in everything.
Yeah.
You improv for everything. So if you're not kind of actually improing, you're just kind of setting
Yeah.
things you already know
Yeah.
Yeah.
in an order. It's not
Yeah.
really helping you as much.
And I feel that improvisation is the foundation of creativity in terms of choreography.
Yep.
So, I mean, you know, as a choreographer, you know, the first thing you do is you listen to the music over and over and over, and then you start to improv to that music, and then you start to formalise it into actual steps and whatnot. So it's just such an important skill, you know, to have. So, yeah.
When I was a boy, I asked one of the committee members if we could, as soon as they had lyrical or modern, it was called then, jazz and ballet improv, if we could have a tap improv, because I was fully
Did
into
you
my
rip a tap in, bro? I bet you ripped a tap in, bro.
They
didn't
said
have
that wouldn't work, Darren. You just do one of your old speed taps. And I went, oh, how disappointing. I'd really like to do that. And now they have it.
Yeah,
Like,
there
it's
is.
So
everywhere.
you never got to do a tap in?
No,
bro?
I never got to do it.
Oh.
They do it now, yeah.
Yeah, they do it.
It's and what about tap? Like when you're adjudicating now, do you find that only from my experience, the number of competitors is dropping a lot?
Yeah. yeah.
Do you feel like the quality's dropping, or do you feel like, what are the reasons behind that? Because tap's a big part of your life.
I just think it's so heavily glossed with contemporary lyrical and hip hop, that that's the cool thing. If you're a dancer, that's the cool thing to do. There is a resurgence of tap.
Yeah.
The Australian Tap Festival, the
Of
Sydney
course,
Tap Festival,
All the
all
tap
those
shows,
amazing tap shows that are about. And I think it is, we're innovating it, we're keeping it alive, we're doing all we can to bring it back.
Yeah.
So
I think that's maybe another episode we can get you back on for it.
Cool.
Tap.
Yeah.
Episode based around tap
Yeah.
dance.
Be nice to get a few others on.
Yeah.
Who know what they're on about with
Their
that
thoughts.
as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think that's one of the
We need to
biggest.
fix it.
Yeah, or just keep pushing it. Like you said, there's
Yeah.
great people doing great things
Yes.
for it.
You know.
But I think that applies to a lot of other sections. I feel like if you're gonna do comps a lot, and I guess the question is how many is too many, or what are the areas that kids can be thinking about differently. I think they need to go, am I doing every year a jazz and a lyrical, or a contemporary and a lyrical, and I'm getting a certain progression with that, but what are the sections I've never done? What can I get now that I haven't got from competitions? Why not try a song and dance? It's going to petrify you, but you're going to learn the most by doing something like that, or a tap if you've never done it, or
It feels most exposing, I think.
Exactly.
Like for tap and song and dance, which is, I never did a song and dance. I didn't sing as a kid. I loved tap, and tap impros were very hard because you can't fake it.
No.
No, there's no
You can hear it, and it's the same with song and dance too. Is like
Yeah.
if you're off key,
Everyone knows.
everyone knows.
Well, there's,
So
there's a quality element that's needed to
yeah,
produce it.
which requires more hard work
Yeah.
previous to it, and I guess it depends on everyone's circumstances. Not everyone has stacks of hours to put into practice, especially with families. And I was luckily, I live 2 minutes from the studio in Dubbo, so to get to the studio, I used to ride my bike just last month. I used to. It was last month, Charles. It was 10 years ago. But, it's super close, but here there's commuting, and there's, I'm sure there's, you have to pick which Eisteddfods to go to and which ones you can go to financially and stuff as like a family,
Yes.
And I'm sure that's a part of it too, is that there is as much as a studio owner was like, we want to do all this, I'm sure there's families that are just like, this is a lot, for us. Because the kids might want to do it too, but, so it needs to be a very congruent message and feeling between, or understanding between all the elements to make sure that the kid feels like everyone's supporting around them, because there's probably nothing worse than being feeling excited to go to an Eisteddfod at the studio, but the parent at home is like, or, vice versa. I don't know how it works really.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of spitballing, but, I have noticed every now and then, particularly when you get to competitions, the feeling of the parents who are there, it's very much like, we're here again.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to...
That's a sign of maybe, competition fatigue.
Yeah.
Maybe there is, a situation where they're maybe doing too many,
Right.
if that's how they're feeling, it needs to be balanced, and I feel that all comes down to communication from the studio perspective, when it comes down to troops, with their clients, and, getting the information out as to what your intention is, why you're doing these Eisteddfods, and, and getting some kind of feedback about how many is
The right amount.
the right amount for your community, and what you're trying to achieve. So, I think, and when it comes to a soloist, you can tell the kids that are doing too many. They're exhausted, and they're often injured and things like that. So, they're too young to be injured. If you want to have a career in dance, you've got to look after your bodies.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I would suggest also, as you were saying before, rather than just doing your lyrical and your jazz, try and do everything, because we all know that, to get employment in this industry, once you get through, your training and your competition and training, and then your full time, whatever you might do. Beyond that, if you're not versatile, then you're very limited with the amount of work that you're going to get. Even if you've decided you want to be a teacher, you're better off to have as many skills as you possibly can to be employable.
You don't know
more
what's going to
employable.
come from the producer in a work situation. you might have to do a tap routine and you haven't trained it all in tap.
Yeah.
You
And
will
I
have
hear
to do a
that
tap
all the
routine.
time.
Yeah.
I hear that all the time from dancers that haven't trained in tap or
Yeah.
haven't trained in a certain
Especially
genre.
in musical theatre. I always
Yeah,
found that
musical
funny.
theatre.
Like, people really put a lot of effort into everything else. And I'm like, you know how much tap is in, like,
Yeah.
like some of the,
Musicals.
in musicals? There's a lot.
Every
and
second
it
show.
sneaks in there. It might not be the
Yeah.
whole show. It's like Singing in the
number.
Rain. Obviously, there's going to be tap.
Yeah.
42nd Street, you know. But there's other little bits and pieces where you're like, there's a tap number in there. And you're like, yep.
Cameos.
Yeah.
So we're not
Lot
going
of
to
shows,
soft
yeah.
shoe you, so you better learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's-
Exactly. I think versatility is going to pop up in almost every episode, which I think it has,
Yeah.
because, and I know it's that thing of the same thing. The teacher's probably said it 100 times, but hopefully, if we keep saying it in every episode,
Yeah.
you know,
It'll get
someone,
through.
one person would even make a difference, and that would be, you know, enough for me to know we're doing something good here. If one person go home is watching right now and goes, actually, I'm going to start a private singing lesson next week. I'm going to take up that tap class. Or,
Yeah, and that's exposure to like something good of that
Yeah.
style, because you can't just be like,
yeah,
do tap, because it's. I'm telling you, down
Yeah.
the track, kids don't understand that,
No.
and I know because I
Right.
remember not understanding that.
Yeah.
I mean, I always loved it because I watched Riverdance and the Tap Dogs video. Like,
Yeah.
that thing was worn out, like 100%. It's so funny that I'm sitting here with you right now, actually, because your feet used to do the thing at the.
Yeah.
I know, that's so crazy. It's really cool,
But I think, before you say it, I just think tap makes you a better rhythm-based dancer.
Yeah.
Like,
100%. Yeah, I
mentality
agree.
with everything. Yeah.
And I think there is a perception from parents that that may not have a background in dance themselves, that when we're trying to encourage them to do other styles, it's just like, oh, you just want
Pay
us
for another-
to pay for another
Yeah.
like class. It's
Exactly.
not about that. It's about building the dancer as a well-rounded, versatile dancer,
exactly.
so that they have the best opportunity going forward to have the best career going forward, regardless of whether it's as a professional dancer
Yeah.
or as a teacher or anything that they might choose. It's better to have this well-rounded, versatile background and training,
Yes.
so that you go into the industry well prepared, or into the world well prepared. So,
Yeah. No, I agree. I think in every different little style teaches you something different. The tap does teach you rhythm, ballet. It's how you control every
Everything.
fiber of your being. Hip hop is how you move through the music and feel that funk.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could go
Goes
on
on,
with the
yeah,
list
yeah.
of all the things, and those are the main styles. And then you've got street styles, and you've got Latin styles, and
Yeah.
all of that. The way you move your hips, and it just kind of compounds to the fact that, and then builds you exponentially.
Yes.
As you learn each different style, and
And I think a lot of kids maybe go, oh, I do those classes, but if you're going to say, oh, I'm not really a tap dancer, or I'm not a very good hip-hop dancer, competitions are a really important way to be able to build that confidence, to be able to feel like you can actually say, yeah, I'm a hip-hop dancer.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because you can do the class, but if you're still not confident enough in the audition room in that style, then it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
So use those competitions to
Yeah.
to build that confidence in those
Yeah.
areas.
I think it's also like to help them break out of the pigeonhole that they may have put themselves into
Yeah.
because they feel most comfortable in a certain style. Okay, and this is going to come up in life. Things are going to get hard in different ways. So it's great to learn this as a child, going through the dance studio process. To actually go, oh, I might try this in a safe environment.
Yeah.
So that I can learn a different skill and feel confident and comfortable with doing that. So it's not just about dance; it's about learning life skills as well, about putting yourself out there and trying something new.
Yeah.
To build confidence and everything. So
What are your thoughts on? Because I guess the common, not criticism, but thing that comes up with a lot of people when it comes to competitions is, don't do it to win a trophy. We always say that. It's not about the trophy. Don't do it. So you can win something. How can we, as a community or as competition directors, get that message across better? How can we convince parents and kids to value that part of it less, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
I think
Because we can say it all day, but at the end of the day, they're still going to rush in and watch that section that's really competitive. They're still going to be writing down the scores and sending it to people. how can we convince them that like they should just care less about that stuff?
Yeah, I think there's always going to be an element of people doing that, you know. I
Yeah.
think it's human nature to have a little bit of a competitive spirit, but if the constant message is there from the studio owners and teachers, and it's a consistent message that the intention is that it's a growth format, you know, that we're doing this for a purpose of growth and a purpose of, you know, and you might set different intentions for each competition that you do. Like, for example, I know Darren, you know, would set different intentions as his studio grew. You know, the first intention was teamwork, you know, and then the next intention was this, and the next intention was
That's
that.
clever,
Do you know what I mean? So it can be a progressive thing throughout the year.
It's giving them something else to think about when they're there.
Rather than the same thing over and over, because otherwise that gets fatigued as well. That message gets fatigued. So, you know, perhaps if you know, the first competition of the year could be all about just getting them back into, you know, like some semblance of becoming one again, you know, and then work on something different that becomes, you know, evident in the classroom as you go along, and talk about it with your teachers and that sort of thing. Say, hey, look, what's our purpose and intention for this competition coming up?
Yeah.
You know, I really think that that's an important, you know, a great way of building that team spirit. That we're not just working on the same thing over and over and over, you know. And if we win, or if we get, you know, whatever comes along the way, that is fantastic, and that's a bonus. But it's not. It shouldn't be the be all and end all.
I guess, like, I mean, a couple of things I do. Not saying they're necessarily right or wrong, but just ways I like to think about it. Is I always talk about the main focus being entertaining the audience.
Yeah.
And I say, let's not worry about what that one person says. Let's focus on if the whole audience stops and watches, if they get involved with the performance. You know, if I'm getting my peers coming up to me and multiple people going, wow, that routine was amazing, that's more important to me than what that one person wrote on the page.
That's where I am. I like to be inspired by other studios. I like to see something different, something outside the box. And if I see something that was like, wow, that was so cool, that was so clever, because we're going to keep dance alive. We're going to keep it moving forward, not stay where we are.
And ultimately, I guess an adjudicator's opinion is subjective. So, you know, if someone is looking at these routines for a certain, you know, vision as an adjudicator, they might see something that they like in this one that really resonated with them, therefore they liked it better. So it is. I do the same thing whenever I teach you know, it's usually just my old school in Dubbo that we do the jazz, and I always start with being like, we're not making this to win. We're just making a performance, we'll put it on, and then they can decide where it ranks. But if you engage with the audience, like if the audience remembers you, that is a win.
Exactly.
Rather than actually getting the trophy or something like that, which is nice. It's a physical representation of the work that you've done. But
they won't remember
again,
next week they remember what I always say that the audience is going to remember how they felt when you did that routine in a couple of weeks, but they're not going to really remember. I mean, maybe some people do, but they're probably not going to remember what the placings were.
But without social media and like being able to present out to the world, I was similar probably to you back in the day, where dancers or studios had reputations, and you were excited to see what they were going to do, and that built some excitement,
it's inspiration to each other.
Absolutely.
You know, we play off each other. You know, and that's what's respectful between each competition studio coming together and see what they've come up with, what they've been doing over the year. You know, it's great.
And as you touched on before, I mean, it's not like it's a mathematics test where there's a definitely right or wrong, and this is the highest mark. And you know, it is subjective because it's an art form. We are performing art, so art is subjective, and it's about the eye of the beholder. And you know, sometimes it is incredibly difficult for you know, judges to score, because there is so much merit in everything that they're seeing, and then to, you know. And it's a horrible job sometimes, because sometimes you want to go, oh, you all need, you know, like you're all amazing, I want you all to win. But, you know, it does come down to the fact that it is a competition. So, you know, like, but I think it's really important from a judging point of view to make sure that, you know, within your critiques and what you say on the microphone, that does come across, you know, that you really do appreciate what the effort has been and the artistry and every effort that they've put into their costuming, their grooming, their you know, their technical training, whatever it might be, whatever type of technique that they're demonstrating. But it's...
I've had so many experiences where I'm like, the first or second out of 20 routines comes out, and I'm like, oh, absolutely nothing's topping that, 99. And then the next one comes out, and you're like, get the white out. You made a mistake. This is going to be
point.
It's point 99.1.
Oh, okay.
You slow it down with
Let
it.
me write that down. I've got some notes to take. It's I think once we have that respect too, that competition is like, it's a nice build that people can use and kids can use, like within the studio or within themselves, that you know that, there's like the local person that always wins the jazz, and you're like, I'm gonna get him, get him this year, you know. And there's no jealousy or envy there. It's just like friendly competition. Because even on like some of the Usher performances, before we wander out on the stage, one of the guys would be like, I'm gonna roast you out there.
See?
And you're like, all right, you can try, and then you go out and you both of you are up another level. So, and I think that can happen on the competition level as well. It can balance on a knife's edge, though.
I think it's just a matter
which is
of
where the guidance needs to come in.
Yeah, and it's so easy for kids and parents to know which side of that knife's edge they are.
You'd hope so, yeah.
It's an emotion thing. Like if you're having that thing of, I really want to do well today, I want to push myself and get to that next level, that's great. But if when you don't get that thing you wanted to get, you're feeling upset and defeated, that's when you know you're thinking about it the wrong way. If you're just like being motivated at comps to actually push yourself to the next level, even if it is about like, I want to try to win this time, that's okay, as long as you're not feeling upset or super happy based on that one thing.
And you can feel disappointed for a second. You know, like if I ever go to an audition and, you know, I actually have an emotional investment, like this would be a really cool job to get. And I get through a lot, and then I get cut, like towards the end, I'll go home and I give myself a 24-hour period, you know? So I'll just be like, you can be bummed out for 24 hours, you know, nothing too extreme, like still just be like, but 24 hours, you're like, that's it.
It's time to move on.
I'm moving on, like it's in the past now. And if you can kind of give that to a kid or a student or something like that says, like, you can feel it, because it means that you worked for it and it meant a lot to you, which is good.
Yes.
Because if it meant nothing to you,
there's a problem.
You're a sociopath. You know, so,
or you don't love dance.
Or you don't love it as much. So, and we should, we should be able to mold that and guide you through that experience. And I think that's kind of important.
Yeah,
definitely.
If the goalpost is about you know, about whatever you're teaching the kids in the studio at that point in time and achieving that goal, everything else, you know, can be a bonus, or it can be, you know, like put aside, you know, as you said, after 24 hours or whatever it might be, you know, because if you've achieved every goal that you set out to achieve, then you've won anyway.
Totally.
So,
I love that idea of giving them separate goals or tasks for that competition. That's really cool. And that's,
so it's a progression, you know, and if you nail this part of it, then we'll move on to the next progression.
And it's cool too to do it that way, because it's a slow grind with small goals, you know, which kind of compile over a year. And even if, for example, me watching back my performances and the group performances, you'll notice each year you get a little better. But it happens so slowly because all you're doing is going, all right, in March we're going to do this, and then in June we're going to do this, and then in August we're going to do that. And so you just jump small goals, and each time you learn something new, suddenly you're at the end of the year and you've got all this experience. It's kind of like putting on muscle or something in the mirror. If you look at yourself every day, you're not going to see that growth. But if you take a picture at the start and at the end, you're going to be like, look at that, you know. And so I like that kind of way that you challenge. Each thing is a little challenge, and it's slightly different, so you're not just hammering away. You say, eat your vegetables.
One of the things that I utilised in my studio before I, moved into different areas, was one of the progressions that I gave them was that I would rotate the positions.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So,
cool.
for example, in one routine that we did, we had a couple of main players, and it just so happened that one of the main players got injured, so I had to rotate somebody into that position, and then I decided, this is actually a really good exercise.
Yeah.
Rotate people into the different, positions, because in life, we all know, as a swing, we have to know every single
Hardest job in the industry.
the hardest job in the industry. So we have to know every single position of that routine. So
That's
I
cool.
started to do that. I started to rotate everybody, so they all had to know each other's positions.
Yes.
So that's another exercise that could possibly,
And this is like my biggest, not gripe with the way people are approaching competitions, but I guess what I'm seeing is the ways that teachers and students have to push themselves in order to keep winning and keep progressing in the competition world kind of sometimes takes them further away from the professional industry. And I think that's my biggest concern. So if you're using them for things like that and going, okay, this is going to teach them to be a swing one day, or this is going to help them with that area, and you're using them as tools to help them actually, because let's face it, the people that are doing solo comps all the time, they're pretty serious about dance. They probably want a career in it, but the reality is a lot of the time they're sending themselves further in a direction that's based more around the tricks they're doing and based around the the other elements that are maybe not going to be even as utilized once they do actually then have to make this huge jump across to an audition and professional scenario.
Yeah. I think the tricks are really important to learn,
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely a place for them, and it's phenomenal seeing what people can, kids can do now. It's incredible, like they bet they can pull off, 15, turns in a row and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's also important to recognise, which I don't know whether a lot of mums and do understand this, or dancers understand this, that that's not what is utilised in the industry as such. I mean, a lot of commercial dance doesn't incorporate multiple fuertes or massive leaps and things like that. But it is very important to learn that, and you can utilise that in the competition world, but also understand that that's not necessarily the type of thing you're going to be doing as a dancer on a cruise ship, or as a dancer,
Good luck trying to flip on a cruise ship. We got strong winds today. I'll just keep it to one back flip.
I mean, some of those cruise ships, they are doing a lot of technical aspects, but
you're going to get that sort of work with.
But you did cats. So sorry to cut you off.
you're right.
I was going to say you did cats on a rake stage, right?
yes.
Yeah.
It's like
Carmen on a race stage,
So that's a good example of when you might need that, but it's not. It's very particular how it's used, rather than just willy nilly.
And I think
I hate that I used willy nilly.
Willy-nilly.
Yeah,
It's a good
I am 180. That's it.
it's a good way to kind of, I guess, see if your incentive is based on growth or if it's based on the trophy. Are you testing yourself in different ways? Are you trying to develop new skills, or are you just trying to do those things that might click with the adjudicator and might give you an extra point? If you're maybe putting things on the stage or choreographing routines for your soloists or troops that are based on pushing them in different areas or pushing their entertainment quality or performance skills, that's a good way to kind of know at heart, are you doing this for the right reasons, I guess.
Well, the thing is, and I guess this goes a little bit beyond competition to a philosophical part of dance, is that we are interpreting the music.
Yes.
So if you're throwing together click, 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 like all these things that you can do, and you could copy and garage band that to another song, is that exactly what the music's telling you to do? And I think one of the things that Jason Gilgison once said to us, maybe it was on So You Think You Can Dance, was the performer has to walk forward with such an intensity that the audience leans into them,
Yes.
And it's something where it's like, can we start to attempt to teach that to kids younger,
For sure.
rather than just being like, it matters what you do rather than how you do it.
Yes, which came up in another one of our episodes.
Yeah. I think
true.
that's that is a very overarching philosophy of dance. It is. I think I said it to my students in my open class last night, it is kind of hard to be like, this is a completely new step. I've made it up. No one's ever seen it before in their entire life. You're like, that's going to be a very cool step to watch. Most of them have been made up in some way, shape, or form. But what makes them articulate is how you do it. And it's really exciting as a judge and stuff like that to see effort put into solos like that.
Some of the things are phenomenal, and it's just sometimes such a dream to watch. You just absolutely.
I think it's
awestruck.
Important to be able to conform to an ensemble. Like you have to fit in as one of the dancers.
Totally.
It's like the saying from Chorus Line, don't pop the head, Cassie. Because she was being the star out in front of everyone else. I think we all want to be stars, but I think the actual reality of the industry is we all have to be the same.
There are some private dance companies that are doing some exciting stuff, incorporating more kind of, tricks and that type of thing. So that's really lovely to to see that development happening too, which is great. But unfortunately, as we all know, a lot of the private companies struggle for funding. So it's a difficult area to keep going without assistance. So
100%, especially now.
Especially now.
As usual, I think we could probably go on all day. Get 4 people like us, but I think that's some awesome insight, and thank you guys so much for coming out today.
Thanks for having
us.
us.
Thank you for having us, BJ.
It's so interesting hearing all your perspectives, and I hope everyone learned something from that. Thank you so much for watching our episode on Eisteddfods. Make sure you've subscribed, write a comment in the bottom, tell us what you thought about the episode, and thank you so much for watching again. We'll see you next time on Dance Talk.